Do you know what? I do want to say, Nadeem, you're saying thanks to us, but we want to say thank you for the music, because what you've done over the last, 2-3 decades, it has been absolutely amazing. And I think even decades to come, years to come, all will be remembered with the amazing work that you've done during the 90s, the early 2000s, and even some of the 80s as well. I mean, seriously, Nadeem, how did you do all this? And, what would you say in terms of your journey over the past, 3 decades or so?
Well, Raj, it's been a roller coaster, definitely. Fame and success is never an easy ride at all. It has its own ups and downs and tears and smiles, and as you go on, the higher you reach, the worse it gets. So I mean, of course, I don't want to scare the youngsters, the very great, new talent who are there. You have to really work hard. You have to put your head on your shoulders, and you have to really, concentrate on your work no matter what, because people around you are going to push you. They're going to throw you down. They won't even try and come and pick you up. You have to get up yourself, and start running again. So that's what the journey has been. It's not been easy at all, but that doesn't mean it's like when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. But you know what? That's the attitude, yeah.
But Nadeem, despite the challenges that you've had, you probably, you changed the kind of scene of music in the 90s and the early 2000s. It was nothing else but soundtracks of Nadeem Shravan. Every filmmaker wanted to work with you. I know you said in an interview with Ruby Raza earlier that, you had to reject so many offers and so much work from filmmakers.
Hundreds of offers.
Yeah. So tell us about...
Not 10, 20, 40, 50, hundreds of offers.
Wow.
I mean, we were in totality, Raj, we were offered about 450 films in that journey, And out of that, we only took up 165 films,
Do you know?
So, yeah.
So let's quickly talk about the kind of early. I mean, I know Ashiki was the big one that kind of just changed everything for you. But then following that, there was always this kind of melody, this kind of sound that Nadeem Shravan always had, which was just something else completely. Even now, you can easily kind of distinct a Nadeem Shravan song from the other kind of soundtracks and other kind of musicians. What was it about your kind of melody and your kind of compositions that always kind of stood out?
I guess that's I always attribute it, Raj, I always attribute it to God Almighty, and I attribute to the inspiration which He sends me, and I believe so that when a producer normally gives me a situation to of the film, like Sunil Darshan when I was here in London during that time when Ek Rishta was made, Amitabh Bachchan ji and Akshay Kumar and
Karisma Kapoor.
Karishma Kapoor. Yeah, you know it all by heart. Yeah.
I just played it. I just played Ek Dil Hai, which is my favourite song from that soundtrack, by the way.
Oh yeah, of course, yes, very much so. So when he offered me the songs, he had come here actually for award night, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. And he narrated to me the song in the night near the function. It's in the East London, I think it was, yeah. And in the next 2 days, I had already been ready with the track. So when he came home to listen to the track, he was totally zapped out. I played him all the 6-7 songs which were there, and so I guess I've been blessed in a way. And I guess the whole similarity of whatever the melody which you find in all the songs, the typical style, a stamp of the Nadeem Shravan, brand, definitely stems from the mercy of God Almighty.
Yeah. Did you know? I got to admit that the kind of 90s, the early 90s, the Rung, the Divanas, all these soundtracks that came out in the early 90s, they had a different sound to the Bewafa in say 2005, which was a little bit more kind of different. So you can kind of see the shift in terms of you're changing with the time. So what would you say about the kind of earlier soundtracks to the soundtracks that came out later?
Raj, great question. I think it's a very, very nice question. You see, from the time we started off, of course, the melody element has been, retained, right through the journey. You see, even when we were always told by our producers also, do what you want, please don't change your style. The only thing we want you to do is to modernize your orchestra a bit, and that's what we did. If you do play one of my tracks in Ek Hasina Thi Ek Deewana Tha, Sunil Darshan ji, the song Hue Bechain.
I will definitely play that.
Hum it.
Yep.
Shall I hum it?
Yeah, please do, Nadeem. Of course.
All my beautiful fans whom I'm as it is in love with.
Yes, please. Yeah.
हुए बेचैन पहली बार हमने राज ये जाना मोहब्बत में कोई आशिक क्यों बन जाता है दीवाना अगरचे प्यार हो जाए किसी पे दिल ये आ जाए बड़ा मुश्किल होता है दिल को समझाना हुए बेचैन पहली बार हमने राज ये जाना मोहब्बत में कोई आशिक क्यों बन जाता है दीवाना.
Nadeem, I remember when you also released Aisha many years ago. Yes, I remember that.
Yes.
So over the years, you've had this kind of not hidden talent, but this talent that you haven't really, kind of exposed so much as your music side. Why did you not kind of take singing on as a kind of full-time profession as well as your music work?
Well, honestly speaking, I've never had the time to pursue this because I was always very, very busy in my, singing, and it was always Shanu, my dear partner, and my writer Sameer, and several of my producers would always come up with one common comment after our recordings. They'd say, अरे यार वो मजा नहीं आया रिकॉर्डिंग तो हो गई पूरा 200 पीस का ऑर्केस्ट्रा हो गया लेकिन जो आपने हमें फिटिंग में जो सुनाया था ना वो मजा नहीं आया so it was this compliment was just going on and on a bit too many times. Then they pushed me into singing that song जब कोई प्यार से बुलाएगा तुमको मेरा प्यार याद आएगा. So it was I was really literally pushed onto the mic.
Yeah. That's incredible.
And then sort of this whole the singing part was never a part of my career. Mm-hmm. Then Tips offered me to sing this Aisha album, which was very successful. I mean, I loved it because whenever I used to sing to the whole crowd on my stage shows, and it was great to see 50,000 people swing, to one, to the song. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, that, hey, I mean, we've been giving these singers, some of the most fantastic compositions, So these guys go and then they take all the, applause and they take all the credit for that beautiful song, and then they never even turn back and say thank you to us.
Yeah. True. Nadeem, I do want to ask you about that because, there was always this trio, Udit, Kumar Shanu and Alka, three of them, of course, who reigned the 90s. And I gotta admit, I mean, I think you have had a massive, of course, Nadeem and Shravan, both of you had such a massive kind of influence in terms of their success as well. What would you say?
Of course, yes.
What would you say about the three of them that you worked with so closely in the 90s?
Well, I mean, they performed well, they became superstars, in their own rights, but I think at one point of time it was, my personal opinion, of course, was kind of a betrayal, because they never gave us the credit for it, they just, right now when you see them on national televisions, they never ever give Nadeem Shravan the credit of the songs which they are singing so very, frequently. I mean, on every show, out of 50 songs, 25 songs of ours are being sung by Kumar Sanu and Agnek and all. But you will see, go through the annals of the whole, the television shows, you'll find that, unfortunately, they don't even, they don't like to take our names. Mostly, And for that, I was very, very, hurt.
But Nadeem, have you even raised that question with TV producers or, the makers to say, why do you not credit, the musicians? I mean, at the end of the day, the melody and the music is all yours, right?
Yes, I have. Of course, I did. In fact, at one time, I spoke directly to Kumar Sanu, and I said, you were on the show for, on Sony Television. And I said, why did you, throughout the show, you didn't bother to even take your name? Did they stop you? Did the television unit stop you? Or people stop you from taking the giving the due credit, Says, no, I'm sorry, I just forgot. Or whatever the answer was. I mean, it was to that effect. I don't remember it so very clearly now. But it's sad. I mean, I'm sorry, Raj, to come up with such a thing because, when you said this to me, it was just the whole thing comes up, that, the least a composer deserves is due credit.
Yeah, I agree. No, it is completely unfair. And, full respect to you and to Shravan for, creating some magical and change of history back in the, back at that time. You broke records, you did so many awards that you guys took home and everything, the kind of love and the appreciation you got worldwide. So, yeah, that is completely unfair. Nadeem, do you also want to ask you, I mean, there was particular filmmakers that you work with. There's so many, in fact, I think, but you didn't leave any of them. But can I ask you, is there a particular filmmaker that you didn't work with that you probably thought, maybe I should have had that chance to work with them? Is anyone like that?
Yeah, Raj, another great question, Raj, because I've worked, of course, with the likes of, in the Raj Kapoor RK films with Rishi Kapoor and Deep Kapoor ji, and, late Rishi Kapoor ji, very dear friend of mine. He's really loved my work so much, And of course, I've worked with all the stalwarts, B.R. Chopra Saab, and all the big names in the industry.
Yeah.
You name it, and it was there. But I really, really regretted not having worked with Dev Anand Sahab.
Wow. Yeah.
Although I was offered by him about 4 or 5 times. He told me, gave me a great compliment. He says I had stopped, I had locked up in my tijori the script of Johnny Mera Naam 2. And he says I had said after Barmanda's death, I said there's nobody to make this film, so I just put it in the locker. And he says after having heard you guys work, I now feel that I want to produce this film again,
Wow.
And then somehow the other, for several other, few reasons, I couldn't really just say I was very, very busy as well at that time, but definitely I have a very big regret for not having worked with Dev Saab, and the kind of love he used to give me, it was, Raj, we've been very lucky, Raj. We've been so lucky. We've been pampered by every producer of ours, by every actor. You name it, from Bachchan Saab down to whatever, everybody has really loved us so very much, that I think this journey has been just love and love.
Oh, and you'll continue to get that over the years. I tell you now, because your music will always stick out to the other music composers from that particular era. Nadeem, do you want to ask you one more question before you go? Because I know today we've taken so much of your time and we really, really appreciate it. But one more question that I wanted to ask you was there a particular soundtrack that released that you had composed that didn't work as well as had expected? Maybe something that you thought, oh man, ye to thodi aur chalni chahiye thi.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I beg your pardon.
Is there a particular soundtrack that, say, you composed, any music that you composed, any film soundtrack that you composed that didn't really kind of click and you thought, oh, wish this worked a little bit better and the response was a little bit more better than, say, the kind of hard work that you put in?
No, I guess every other film which I've composed has been very, very successful. Not really. Sometimes there are, like you do a film. Suppose I've made, 8 songs in a film, and maybe 2-3 of them don't succeed as much. It's only because it's exactly like us going into a grand party and then there's a buffet on, and then you start off with the biryani, you start off with the, this chicken tikka, and then you go on and on. By the time you come to the fifth dish, that's the fifth song, the law of diminishing marginal utility, kind of, or whatever. I mean, it's sort of, you tend to, the appetite sort of, reduces,
Yeah.
So maybe that can be the reason, That's why we started to taper down and we said, let's keep 5 songs,
Yeah.
in a film, because good songs were also many times, could not be recognized as much.
Yeah, but Nadeem, I think you brought this up with Ruby earlier. I mean, there were so many songs when you released the soundtrack. There were so many songs on that soundtrack. All of them became chart busters. I mean, the example for me would be Rung, the soundtrack of Rung. Every song, even a song like Coming, 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 which wasn't even in the film, was a popular song in the soundtrack. So it's just whatever. I mean, you don't get those kind of tracks or soundtracks anymore these days, do you?
Well, of course we'll get it now, hopefully. I mean, I've been literally pushed onto by my fans, they've, with love, they've threatened me, like that you have to. I mean, what the hell, we cannot live without these songs, kind of thing. I mean, so desperate is the situation as on now, that I'm I think I'm just forced to hopefully start off with something, I have to deliver back to my fans all the love and affection which they've been giving me. If I can bring happiness and love to their hearts, I think I'd be the most lucky person in the world.
Yeah. Nadeem, thank you so much for giving your time to us today on Nadeem Shravan Day. We're dedicating the whole day to you and, of course, Shravan Rathod as well. Just before you go, a few words for Shravan Rathod, just in case anyone missed the interview earlier on Ruby Raza show. What would you like to say about Shravan Rathod and that amazing friendship that you had over the years?
Well, honestly, I miss my partner very much, now more so that he's not around. We always tend to, miss people when they are not around us. We don't have that value when they are around us, And all I can say is that I've lost a very beautiful brother in me. I mean, Shravan, up until, maybe the last 20 days before he died, I spoke to him once. I mean, we were speaking often, in the last two and a half years. But, I mean, he was always, for me, he was always, the answer was yes, So I really remember, I think he was the one man in the world who never said no to me for anything, And that is one attribute of his which I will never forget in my life. I mean, the great soul, a very loving person, a man with a charming smile, and one of the most beautiful, harmonium players, I would say, in the world. When you would play, it was like, what was that? The Pied Piper kind of thing.
No.
He was so amazing. I mean, when we jammed together, the whole atmosphere was so electric, It was like you could see a Bachchanji dancing, or you could see a Rishi Kapoor dancing, or you could see an Akshay Kumar or Salman Khan or Shah Rukh Khan, or, they all performing. That was the kind of electricity in our sitting room, And I really, really miss India, of course. And I miss those studios of mine. And I miss those atmosphere, I miss the people, And I hope to God one day, that my prayers will be answered,
No, yeah, dosti dum se hai. That's what I think we should finish on. But I just want to say, Nadeem, thank you so much for your time today, and for today, for Nadeem Shravan Day here on Lyca Radio. I just want to say a huge thank you to you for bringing so many blockbuster soundtracks. Yes.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Raj, I'd like to take this opportunity in thanking all the NHS staff, the doctors, the nurses, the frontline workers, for all the effort they've, put into saving lives, So I really, really from the bottom of my heart, thank them all. And I request all my beautiful fans the globe, to pray for me, pray for us, and as well as to really take care of themselves.
Oh, thank you so much for those lovely words, Nadeem, and all the best. And let's keep in touch. We're going to do some more stuff here on Lyca Radio, so we'll definitely be requiring your inputs on that.
Thank you, Raj.